Good morning. This is our very last episode of our Logging On series with the Division of Forestry from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Melissa Yapel, and I'm going to be behind the scenes working with my coworker Kelsey and Dawn, answering any questions that you have. So while we hear from our presenters today, Aaron Kloss, our Fire Program Administrator, and Courtney Kaywood, Forest Manager in Southeast Ohio. Please, folks, feel free to utilize the question and answer feature to ask any questions that you have. So if you missed any of our previous webinars that we have, don't worry, you can go back and watch them on our YouTube page. You can just go to YouTube and search OhioDNR. We have tons of great videos there. This series has covered history of Ohio's forests, tree ID, and last week we covered urban forestry. This week, as you probably know, we're talking about wildfire prevention. So before we get started, one other thing that I just wanted to point out is if you haven't checked out our 2020 Fall Color Report, that can also be found on the YouTube page. And I'm going to share the link in the chat with you in just a few minutes. But I'll pass it to Aaron. He is going to get started. I'm pretty sure that he has the coolest office because I think Smokey Bear might work next door to him sometimes. But here's Aaron for you.
Thanks, Alyssa. I really appreciate it. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Like Alyssa said, my name's Aaron. I work for the Ohio Division of Forestry, and I work in our fire management program. Hopefully, you guys tuned into some of the previous episodes and have learned about a lot of the cool stuff that people with the Ohio Division of Forestry do to benefit the people of Ohio and also the forest and trees here in Ohio. So today, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about some of the stuff that we do in our fire management program to help out around the state. Okay. So, I've got my presentation up here. It's pretty brief. I just want to talk about some of the topics and some of the really important different features that we do here at the Fire Management Program for Ohio Division of Forestry. Okay, the first thing is wildfire suppression, and this is putting fires out. And putting fires out has always been a priority of the Ohio Division of Forestry since way back in the early 1900s, like Don talked about the other week in our history segment. Forest protection is something that's really important to us. So every year in Ohio, we have about 400 wildfire occurrences, and we burn about 4,000 acres here in the state. Okay, and the main cause of our wildfires in Ohio is escape debris burning. And that's when people make piles of yard waste of sticks and leaves and twigs and stuff, and they pile it together and they light it on fire. And a lot of times people choose a day that's too dry or too windy or too hot, and that fire gets out of control and starts burning up a field or burning up into the woods, and then the fire department or Division of Forestry firefighters have to come out and help. So that's the main cause. And if you think about it, that's a cause that we can prevent by choosing a different way to dispose of our yard waste or choose a safe day to burn our yard waste. Now, most of the wildfires in Ohio are smaller. Usually most of the fires are about an acre or two. But because of the way that most fires in Ohio start, which is caused by the main causes caused by people, just about all those fires are going to be really close proximity to people's houses, to people's property, and to people in general. So wildfires in Ohio definitely cause a big safety hazard just because of the proximity that most of them are to roads and houses and people and stuff like that. So when a fire does start, how do we put it out? So there's several different ways in Ohio that we can put fires out. If you look at the picture right here, you see a bunch of guys and girls with hand tools scraping a fire line. Now this is one way that we put fires out. What these people are doing is they're removing all the vegetation from the path of where a wildfire is going to burn. When a wildfire is burning across the surface of the land and it hits this area of dirt right here where these people have taken all the flammable fuels off of it, it's going to stop burning. So this is one way that we do it. We use teamwork with a bunch of firefighters with hand tools to remove flammable vegetation. Now, if a fire is burning with too much intensity and we can't get people close to the fire, we have other stuff that we can use. Sometimes Division of Forestry will use bulldozers to put in fire lines, and we'll also use helicopters to drop water on fires to cool it down so that we can get people and equipment in there a little bit closer. Sometimes we use fire engines and spray water on wildfires too, but sometimes we can't do that because a lot of times we get wildfires, pretty far off of roads and in areas that are inaccessible by trucks. So that's why it's really important that we have people that are trained up to put in fire lines, people that are trained up so that they know how to operate bulldozers and safely suppress wildfires. So one of the things that I want you guys to look at is look at the clothes that this wildland firefighter is wearing. The stuff that these people have on is a lot different than the personal protective equipment that structural firefighters or firefighters in your community wear. A lot of the firefighters that you see in your community have on heavy coats and heavy pants with a lot of insulation that's going to protect them when they go inside of a burning building. So our wildland firefighters are not trained to go inside of burning buildings. We just fight fires that are outside in the woods or in the fields. And so therefore we wear personal protective equipment like the yellow shirts and green pants that you see on these folks right here. Now, the material that this stuff is, that these shirts and pants are made out of is fire resistant. So that's why it's safe for us. You can also see these firefighters have helmets on. They have tall boots that's going to protect their feet. They have gloves on, and they also have a backpack on. Now, if you look up at the guy with the blue backpack, you'll see towards the bottom of his backpack, he's got a kind of a square looking thing in the middle on the bottom of it. Now, that's a fire shelter. Now, that's the last resort personal protective equipment that wildland firefighters have. If firefighters get into a situation where they can't escape from the fire and can't run away, they can take out their fire shelter and crawl underneath of it, and that's the last resort for these guys to stay safe. So Division of Forestry provides wildland firefighters to fight fires here in Ohio when they start, and also out west. Sometimes right now, if you're watching the news and you see these big fires that are going on in California and Colorado and some of these other states, sometimes those fires get so big that those states need additional resources and people to help. So the Division of Forestry has a lot of wildland firefighters that we can send out there to help. We can send out crews of people, we can send out fire engines, we can send out bulldozers, and we can send out individuals who have specialized qualifications that can get out there and help. Right now we have 2 fire engines that are out west right now helping to put fires out. One's in California, one's in Colorado, and those guys are working really hard, staying safe, and trying to do their best to help those agencies out there put those fires out. Now, I talked about some of the differences in structural firefighters, the gear they wear, and wildland firefighters, but both groups of firefighters have something in common, and that's safety. Our top priority is always keeping people safe, keeping firefighters safe, and then doing our best to save structures and personal property, and also the resource too. So that's a little bit about our wildfire suppression. Now, Courtney, after I'm done talking about stuff, Courtney has a really cool presentation that talks about what it's like to be a wildland firefighter fighting wildfires. She's got a lot of really cool pictures and a lot of really cool stories about that stuff. So you'll get some more details on that here after a little while. So the next program area that the Division of Forestry Fire Management guys and girls like to deal with is prescribed fire. So what prescribed fire is when we intentionally set fires in certain ecosystems of forests and grasslands and prairies to accomplish resource management goals. So basically we choose a day where the temperature, the humidity, and the winds will make it as safe as possible for us to light a fire to benefit the vegetation and the plants that are in the certain ecosystem that we're trying to burn. Here's a couple examples of that. Our oak hickory forests in southeast Ohio really benefit from fire running through the woods. Now the reason for that is because some trees like oaks place a lot of energy into their root systems, whereas other plants like maple trees place a lot of energy in their stems and leaves and above ground systems. So if we want a certain ecosystem or a certain part of the forest to have more oak regeneration, we can run a prescribed fire through it. What that's going to do is it's going to knock back a lot of that maple seedlings and regeneration because it has so much energy that's above ground that's going to get affected by fire, and it's going to benefit oak seedlings because they have so much energy in their root system. It's going to allow it to sprout back a lot healthier and a lot more vigorously after a fire runs through. So in prairie ecosystems, prescribed fires are really important because they really promote nutrient cycling. Prairies grow a lot of fine fuels and grasses and wildflowers and forbs and stuff like that. And every year in the fall time, those plants die and they accumulate on top of the surface of the ground. So when we put a prescribed fire through there, we burn up and remove a lot of that dead and decaying material. We recycle those nutrients back into the soil, and it creates a really good environment for new growth to generate after that. So that's a really good benefit of prescribed fire. The Division of Forestry provides some really good training in prescribed fire to other land management agencies. We work with other agencies within OhioDNR, and we also work with local land management agencies like metro parks and county park districts. We also work with the U.S. Forest Service and the Wayne National Forest in the southern part of Ohio to do some training on prescribed fire. It's a really great tool, but prescribed fire requires a whole lot of training, a whole lot of planning, and you have to be able to select the correct day to conduct a prescribed fire. Otherwise, your fire may get away from you and turn into a wildfire, which would be a horrible situation. And that's why land management professionals like us at the Division of Forestry work really hard to conduct research and to make sure that we choose the right days for prescribed fires to take place. Now, across Ohio, yeah.
Sorry, we just had a question come in that I wanted to quickly ask you. We have Loxley, age 8, asking, does Ohio have smoke jumpers that help fight fires in Ohio? I don't know if you can answer that now or if we should wait for Courtney.
No, I can address that. Thanks for the question. We really appreciate that. So in Ohio, we do not have smoke jumpers. And the reason for that is because there's so many roads in Ohio, it's a lot easier for firefighters to hop in a truck or a fire engine and drive up to a fire and be able to hike just a couple miles to get into it. A lot of the areas where smoke jumpers are used are out west in really remote areas and wilderness areas where there's no roads to get to. And that's why people have to, that's why smoke jumpers have to go in through airplanes and drop down, because there's no roads for them to drive into it on. Is that good?
Awesome, thanks.
Cool. Keep the questions coming, guys. Okay, so on prescribed fire, so in Ohio, there's about 200 every year in Ohio, we have about 200 prescribed fires for just over 5,000 acres. And that's really good. And that's fires that Division of Forestry does, and our county park districts and our local metro parks and our U.S. Forest Service partners conduct. And that's really good because that's a lot of fires across the landscape that can really benefit a lot of different ecosystems. Okay, so that's a little bit about our prescribed fire program. The next thing I want to talk about that the Division of Forestry really focuses on is working with fire departments. Okay, fire departments, great people, great guys and girls. They work really, really hard to help keep me safe and you safe and everybody here in Ohio safe. So most of the wildfires in Ohio, the first people on the wildfires to help extinguish them and put them out are the local fire districts. Usually what ends up happening in Ohio is if there's a wildfire, somebody sees it, somebody like you or me or Alyssa or somebody just sees the fire, they'll call 911, and that call goes to the 911 dispatch center, and then those dispatchers will call the local fire department. The local fire department then goes out to the wildfire, checks it out, and tries to put it out. If they need some additional assistance, they can call Division of Forestry, and we can send out people, we can send out fire trucks, we can send out bulldozers. If we need to, we can call a helicopter with a water bucket on it to come out and help out. But these local fire department guys and girls are usually the first people on scene. And so therefore, Division of Forestry really works hard to cooperate with the fire departments and do all we can to provide these guys with resources to make their job easier and safer. So one of the things we do for these fire departments is we sign cooperative agreements with them. And we have agreements with almost 400 fire departments in Ohio. And what that does is that makes the commitment in the agreement for the fire department is they do their very best to be safe and to tell Division of Forestry whenever they respond to a wildfire. It's really important that they let us know when they go to a wildfire so we can keep track of how many fires these guys go to. So what the Division of Forestry does is we offer grants and funding and money to fire departments so that they can continue to buy PPE and equipment and tools and stuff like that to make their job safer and make them help them work a little bit better. So this picture right here, York Township Fire Department, this fire department recently got a grant from the Division of Forestry, and they were able to buy the personal protective equipment that you see them wearing, and they were also able to buy that UTV that's in the middle of the picture. Now you can't see it because we're looking at the front of the UTV, but the back of the UTV has a water pump on it with a hose, and so that UTV is really helpful when these fire department firefighters need to go back up into the woods or cross a field that they can't drive a truck to spray water on a wildfire. So that's why we give grants to fire departments so that they can buy equipment to allow them to put fires out a little bit easier. We also help out fire departments with a couple of different programs we have. Division of Forestry is able to acquire federal surplus equipment, that's extra equipment that the federal government no longer needs, like trucks and generators and trailers and tools. Whenever the federal government does no longer need this stuff, Division of Forestry is able to acquire that and then give it to fire departments so that they can turn these surplus trucks and trailers into equipment that can be used for wildland fire suppression and emergency response. So those equipment programs are really helpful for local fire departments. That means that if we can find federal surplus equipment for these guys, that means that they don't have to spend their local fire department budget trying to buy this stuff new. So it really helps them out, and it allows them to stretch their dollars out so that they can do more good stuff in the community to help keep you guys safe. Okay, so the next program is our training program. So it's really difficult to go out and fight fires effectively without having good training on it. So Division of Forestry really focuses a lot on training people and in wildland firefighting and different aspects of that. So we have training classes that we offer at the Ohio Fire Academy for basic wildland firefighting, for chainsaw operations, for pump operations, for leadership, and for a bunch of different specialized type of activities that are involved in wildland firefighting. So when we offer wildland firefighting classes, we have certain classes that we made just for local fire departments in Ohio so that they could get basic information on how to fight fires effectively and safely here in Ohio. And we also offer training classes that provide national certification so that people here in Ohio can get trained up so that they can go on our crews and go on our engines and go fight fires out west. Now that class is a 40-hour class, and we offer that 2 times every year. And some of the people that take that class, we have all kinds of different people that like to take that class. We have people that work for state agencies, federal agencies, local land management agencies, people that work for local fire departments, but we also have college kids who like to take that class so they can get summer jobs. We have other people who have careers that aren't even in firefighting. They just want to help and they want to take some training and go out and help fire and help fire suppression and put fires out. Sorry, guys. So we have really good programs on that. We also have a training class for people who are interested in prescribed fire. And the main people that take that class are people that work for local land management agencies. We have that class because it's really important that people who want to conduct prescribed fires have a really good understanding of the planning process, how to identify good weather days, how to identify all the resources and materials and equipment and stuff they need on scene in order to conduct a prescribed fire for effective resource management safely. So that's why we have training classes like that.
Aaron,
so training is
sorry, can you give an example of a prescribed fire?
So an example of a prescribed fire would be if we have a forester who is working at one of our state forests and they go out and cruise the timber and take an inventory of what species are there, what condition the trees are in, what kind of regeneration is on the site, what kind of soil type the site is, the slope and aspect of the site. And what a professional forester does is figure out what that stand of timber needs in order, what kind of management that stand of timber needs in order for it to continue to grow and be healthy and provide benefit for timber and for wildlife and for recreation. So if a professional forester who's trained in forest management decides that stand of timber could benefit from a prescribed fire based on scientific study and research and data, then we go ahead and consider doing a prescribed fire in that area. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And Sarah, you mentioned wildfires out west, and we had a question come in from Clay, age 7, asking how the California wildfires started in the mountains.
So wildfires in California, there's more wildfires in California that start from lightning than there are in Ohio. If you think about the natural causes of wildland fires, really in the United States, the only natural cause of wildland fires is lightning. But when you think about lightning in Ohio, what else do we usually get when it's lightning? We usually get rain. And so therefore, that's why lightning is not a main cause of fire in Ohio. In California, there's some areas where lightning storms come through without any rain. As the rain starts falling, it's so dry out there, the rain evaporates before it hits the ground. And so therefore, you can have lightning strikes and lightning cause fires. There's a lot of fires in California that are caused by people, though. Across the country, the main cause of wildfires is human caused. So there's a lot of fires in California that are caused by lightning, but there's also a lot of fires out there that are caused by people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, interesting. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so that's a good segue to the next slide, which is wildfire prevention. So the best and the safest way to deal with wildfires, if it's in Ohio or if it's in California or anywhere in the country, is just prevent them from happening. And like I just said, the vast majority of the fires and wildfires in our country are caused by people. So if they're caused by people, that also means that people can prevent them. Okay, so we get a lot of help from my guy right here, Smokey Bear, in Ohio, preventing wildfires. In Ohio, Smokey shows up at the Ohio State Fair. Some of you folks who have been to the Ohio State Fair and go to the OhioDNR Park have seen our big Smokey, who likes to talk to people and promote wildland fire prevention. And Smokey also likes to go to work with local fire departments to go to communities and do school programs and stuff like that. Do some outreach and education just to remind people in Ohio to prevent wildfires, and it's everybody's responsibility to prevent wildfires. So also a way that we prevent wildfires in Ohio is through laws and rules. Okay, so there's one rule that's coming up that's really important right now in the fall time. Okay, and that's a state law that prohibits outdoor debris burning between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. in October and November in the fall time. Okay. It also prohibits outdoor debris burning in March and April and May in the springtime. Okay, and so the reason why that rule's in place that says that people are not allowed to conduct outdoor debris burns in the spring and the fall is because in Ohio, the spring and the fall are the times of the year that we have most of our wildland fires. So in Ohio, if you think about it, in the springtime, in March, April, and May, usually that's the time of year before all the vegetation has greened up. Okay, that's the early part of the spring where you still have some cool weather and the vegetation hasn't greened up. So if the vegetation is not green and it's still brown and dry, there's a higher possibility that that stuff's going to catch on fire and turn into a wildfire. That's why you're not allowed to burn in the springtime. And then in the fall time, think about it, October and November, that's when we have those dry days and the leaves start to fall and you have a lot of leaf accumulation on the ground. And that stuff can catch on fire really quickly too and get away and cause a wildfire. And that's why we can't burn in the fall time. Now, the reason why you're not allowed to burn between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. is because generally between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. you usually have the hottest time of the day and the driest time of the day. A lot of times it's pretty breezy in the afternoons in Ohio too. And so that's why you're not allowed to burn between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. in March, April, May, October, and November. Now, the Ohio EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, also has some state laws that talk about outdoor burning. Okay, and the rules that the Ohio EPA have kind of generally talk about pollution, the impacts of smoke. For example, if someone wants to do a debris burn and a lot of smoke off of that fire blows across the roadway, that causes a big safety hazard for people that's driving down the road. So the Ohio EPA has rules on that. The Ohio EPA also has rules on materials that you can and cannot burn. For example, the EPA rule says you cannot burn food waste, you cannot burn dead animals, you cannot burn stuff that is made from petroleum-based products like tires and rubber and stuff like that, just because it's really gross and causes a lot of pollution. So that's what the EPA rule kind of talks about. Now, also, local fire departments might have rules about outdoor burning, and so it's really important that individuals check with their local fire department to see what kind of rules are in place in the towns and communities that they live in so that they can stay safe and make sure that they do their best to prevent wildfires and keep their community safe. So that's kind of what I have as far as a presentation on the different program areas that the Ohio Division of Forestry Fire Management Program gets involved with. It's a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's really and truly it's focused on safety, and that's why we work really hard to make sure that we do our very best at wildfire suppression at prescribed fire, at working with fire departments, and at training and at wildfire prevention, because we want to keep the forest growing, more trees for more trees, healthy forests, and we want to keep people safe. So now I want to share a little video with you guys about my guy Smokey right here. It's a really cool video. It kind of talks about the history of Smokey Bear, and it's got a really cool song that you'll be singing for the rest of the day. So I am going to share this video with you. Let's see here. All right.
Okay, kids, it's time to start Fire Prevention Week.
Miss McMyers, we already know about wildfire prevention. Did you know that 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by people?
Yeah, and that most wildfires are preventable by people like you and me.
Huh, I didn't know that. How do you know so much about wildfire prevention?
That's easy, Miss McMyers. Smokey Bear, Smokey Bear. Wildfires are dangerous, and so it's up to us to be aware. Because we care, we're gonna lend a hand to Smokey Bear.
He's a bear?
He's a bear.
A real bear?
Smokey Bear! Wildfires are dangerous, and so it's up to us to be aware and prepare, because we care. Smokey Bear!
Well, what else can you tell me about this Smokey Bear?
Lights, please. Smokey was a happy little bear cub in the forest where he lived and romped around. But one day someone left a fire and the flames got higher and burned that bear cub's forest home right down. The little cub was burned and broken-hearted. This was home for him and all his forest friends. So he put on a brown hat and he swore to his friends that he would never let this happen here again. Smokey Bear,
Smokey Bear!
Smokey Bear!
Smokey Bear!
Wildfires are dangerous, and so it's up to us to be aware
And prepare!
because we care.
Smokey Bear!
We're gonna lend a hand to Smokey Bear.
Now Smokey knew he couldn't do it by himself, so he travels around to fairs and parks and schools. He says he has a dream that every member of his team will teach their friends to follow his 5 rules.
Rule 1. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Rule 2, A, B, C. Always be careful with fire.
Rule 3, never, ever play with matches or lighters. Rule 4, always watch your campfire.
Rule 5. Make sure your campfire is completely out before leaving it.
Now what do you do if you see an open fire with no one around?
Tell an adult. Smokey Bear! Smokey Bear! Smokey Bear! Smokey Bear! Wildfires are dangerous, and so it's up to us to be aware
And prepare!
because we care. Smokey Bear! We're gonna lend a hand to Smokey Bear. Smokey Bear! Smokey Bear! Smokey Bear! Smokey Bear! Wildfires are dangerous, and so it's up to us to be aware and prepare because we care. Smokey Bear! We're gonna lend
Did somebody say Smokey Bear?
Yeah! Smokey Bear, Smokey Bear, Smokey Bear, Smokey Bear. Wildfires are dangerous, and so it's up to us to be aware and prepare because we care. Smokey Bear, we're gonna lend a hand to Smokey Bear. Smokey Bear, Smokey Bear, Smokey Bear, Smokey Bear. Wildfires are dangerous, and so it's up to us
Remember,
to be
kids,
aware and
only
prepare
you
because we
can
care.
prevent
Smokey Bear,
wildfires.
gonna lend a hand to Smokey Bear.
All right, guys. Okay, so that's all I have for my portion of the presentation. If you guys don't have any questions right now, we'll give it over to Courtney.
We had one question. I don't know if you want to take it, Aaron, or if Courtney might want to, but Blaine, age 7, asked, what happens if the fire gets too strong for people to handle?
Okay, I can talk about that. Thanks a lot for the question. That's a really good question because that's all about safety. So if the fire gets too strong and if the flames are burning with such intensity that firefighters, no matter what they do, can't put it out, what we have to do is we have to evacuate people and we have to get all the people out of the path of the fire because that's what we got to do in order to keep the people safe. So if the fire's burning really hard with a lot of intensity, we'll get everybody out of the way so that everybody stays safe. And then when the weather conditions change a little bit and the fire's not burning with such intensity, then we can get back in there, spray water on it, use our equipment, and try to put it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Aaron. We might have had one more. Okay, Andy asked, have you had to fight a fire, Aaron?
Yep, I've fought a lot of fires. I've been fighting wildland fires for almost 20 years now. And so I've been to a lot of states out west to fight fires in a lot of different areas out there. And I've fought a lot of fires here in Ohio too. And there's one common thing about all the fires that you fight. Safety is always the top priority, and teamwork for wildland firefighters. Everybody's got to work really close together and do good teamwork and be safe. But the answer is yes. Yep. And so is Courtney. Courtney has too. And Courtney has a lot of cool pictures that you'll check out here in a moment.
Yeah. So before I pass it to Courtney, Aaron mentioned the state fair and Smokey Bear. So I actually have him behind me. You can see him here. So I just thought I'd quickly show you guys. And I wanted to point out that if you want to learn the Smokey Bear song that Aaron had just played, we do have the sheet music and lyrics on our website, as well as fun activities like a coloring page and connect the dots. So that link is now in the Q&A. So I just wanted to point that out, and I'll send it to Courtney now. You are live.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. I appreciate everybody coming. My name's Courtney Kaywood. I'm a forest manager in Southeast Ohio. I'm going to talk to you guys today about what it's like to go out west and fight fires. So let me share my presentation with you.
Courtney, how many fires have you fought?
I've been on 10 out-of-state fire assignments, but I also fight fires in-state as well. So I've got a lot of neat pictures of all my trips I'm going to show you today. You can see my PowerPoint fine?
Yep. Yeah, you're good to go.
All right. Give a little bit of background about myself. I am a graduate of The Ohio State University, go Bucks. Like I said, I'm a forest manager in Southeast Ohio. It's Zaleski State Forest. You can see that red county on the map, and Vinton County is where I'm located. As a part of my job, I do go out west and other various states to help with wildfire suppression. Just this year in 2020, there's been 7.4 million acres that have burned. And as you guys have probably seen on the news, there's still fires going on, so that number will continue to increase. So to put that in reference for you, it's over a quarter of the size of Ohio has burned just this year. So the way we're set up as a country, oh, my slides froze. Oh, can you still see me?
I can see you. It's still on the same slide.
All right. Good now?
Still seeing. the same slide, Courtney. Oh, now it looks like it's about to change.
Unfortunately, down here in rural Ohio, we don't have the fastest of internet. I'm sure a lot of you guys have dealt with that here recently. But while I'm waiting for the slide to change, I'll explain how we're set up nationally. Is we have 10 different regions throughout the country that are managed for fire. And what happens is a lot of those areas out west, they get really busy, especially in the summertime months, this time of year, fighting fires, that they need help from other firefighters like us in Ohio to go out west and assist them. Has the slide changed yet?
Yeah.
Okay. And in Ohio, we have we call it the Ohio Interagency Fire Crew. It's a crew of 20 people that we've been sending out since 1986. So it's been quite a while. We've been sending our in-state fire crews out west. We've been in a lot of different states throughout the country. Oh, I apologize, you guys. Get my PowerPoint to load here. Is it still on the same slide?
Yeah. If you might want to just talk about some of it, and we can try and pull up your PowerPoint for you.
Yep, that works. So yeah, we have we call it interagency fire crew. It's made up of 20 different people that we, like as Aaron mentioned, we all work together really well when we go out west. But in order to get on the fire crew, you have to have training. So we do training in-state in Ohio. There's a 40-hour class that you have to take. And then every year you have to take more training to keep up to date with everything that's going on in the fire world. Also, in order to be able to fight fires out of state, you have to take a physical test every year. We call it the PAC test. So you have to walk 3 miles with 45 pounds on your back within 45 minutes. So you have to do that physical test every year in order to be on the fire crew. So talking about my experiences, I've been going out since 2013, so just about 7 years now I've been going, assisting resources. My qualifications, I'm a squad boss. So when we go out, I'll have a few people that work with me in a squad. How it works with our 20-person crew, we'll have 20 people, and there'll be a crew boss. They'll be in charge of everybody. And then there'll be 3 different squads of around 5 or so people. And then you have a squad boss in charge of them. And the reason we do that is so the crew boss in charge, he or she doesn't have to follow and keep track of 19 people. So for safety and accountability reasons, we have these squad bosses that are in charge of, like I said, 4 or 5 people. You have the PowerPoint yet, Alyssa?
So I was asking behind the scenes if Aaron or Kelsey could pull it up, because I can't control the screens if I do. So I don't know, Kelsey, can you open her PowerPoint maybe? We'll let you know when we have it.
Okay. I've got some really cool pictures to show you guys of our crews. So not only do we have the hand crew that we send out. As Aaron mentioned, we have other resources that we send out as well. We'll send out bulldozers to help fight fire. We'll send out individuals who have different qualifications and a bunch of knowledge and experience fighting fire as well. And then we have engines, where essentially big pickup trucks with water on the back of them and pumps. And what we'll do, we'll have a bunch of firefighting equipment in that. So we'll have about 3 people that will be on those engines. And as Aaron mentioned, we've got an engine in Colorado and California at the moment. Let's keep going. So what's it like when we go out of state and assist these other agencies who need help with putting out wildfires? So what happens is the areas that have the fires, they'll call and they'll say, hey, we need so many people or this type of equipment, and then they'll call their dispatch centers, and they'll call the dispatch center for us out east, and they'll call us if we're available. We'll say, so how it works is we'll get a phone call. Sometimes you have as little as a few hours. You have to have all your stuff packed up, and you'll meet at the Ohio Fire Academy in Reynoldsburg. And then we'll all gather up, make sure we have all of our safety equipment and meet everybody. And then we'll go out west or whatever state that we're going to. So usually by flight. This year we've sent a lot of crews. They've driven out to the locations where they've been fighting fire. And I've got picture I'll show you later. Sometimes when we fly out west, we'll fly on a plane that we load it up ourselves with all of our gear.
The PowerPoint's loading on Kelsey's desktop, so we should have it soon. Sorry about that, but now would be a great time if anybody does have questions. Feel free, to ask in the Q&A. And I was curious, Courtney, how many female firefighters are there usually when you go out on these trips?
There's been more each year. I've been on, I'd say, at least half of the fire assignments I've been on. I've been the only female, but in the last few years, there's been more female firefighters.
Awesome. So while that is loading, another question, can you guys, and maybe this is a question for Aaron, is there a difference between forest fires and wildfires? Somebody told me the Smokey Bear slogan had changed years ago from preventing forest fires to wildfires.
So wildfires, not all wildfires happen in the forest. As Aaron was talking about earlier, you have some in grassy type areas. So not all wildfires are in the forest, but people kind of use those words interchangeably. But that is correct that the slogan has changed. It's prevent wildfires. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron.
Nope, you are exactly correct. With the part that stayed the same, and the part that's the most important is only you.
That's right.
Okay, it looks like Kelsey has it downloaded. Sorry, folks, for the technical delay. She is, I think, going to share that here soon.
Yep, I apologize, you guys.
We promise she has some pretty cool videos. It's worth the little wait.
All right.
Okay. Here we go. I'm going to send it live in just a second. There we are. So what slide should Kelsey go to, Courtney?
If I can see it, she can just start at the beginning, as long as I can see it here.
She's at that geographical area coordination centers. Should she keep going?
Yep, keep going.
Can you see it,
Okay.
Courtney?
Yep. Okay,
Okay.
that's good. Yep, so I was talking about the different resources we have, and I was talking about that, essentially the big pickup truck with water and a pump on the back. This is a picture of our engine, took out to Pennsylvania a few years back now, so you get an idea of what that engine looks like. Go ahead. And I was talking about the training. That S130-190 is a 40-hour class we have to take. And here's a really neat picture of one of our employees taking that training. She essentially has a flamethrower. It's pretty neat, but that's something that we use on prescribed burns. So you can see it's in her hands and the fire that's on the ground there. So she's getting training on that. And the different resources that we've sent out of state. Here's our bulldozers we sent to Texas a few years ago. So you see that big truck that's carrying them. That's an Ohio Division of Forestry truck that we actually load up the dozer on those large trucks and we drive them to where they need. You see that firefighter's got all this safety equipment on. And in the picture on the left, what they're doing is those two bulldozers are acting in tandem together to clear the ground of grass, so when the fire burns up to that edge, it'll stop burning right there. Let's talk about my experiences. Here's a picture of my first trip in 2013. I was in California, and since then I've fought fire in California, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, Oregon, and Pennsylvania. So yep, here is a really neat picture of a hand crew I was talking about. It's made up of 20 people. We'll have, you see people in there holding chainsaws. So we'll have a handful of people who carry chainsaws. The rest of us will have hand tools that we use to suppress fire. Go ahead. Here's another picture. Was in Colorado a few years ago. Here's my squad. So I was talking about, we're broken up into different groups. So here's me with my squad, and I'm responsible for their safety, and I report everything that's going on to our crew boss. Yep, so when you get the fire call, sometimes you got to be at the academy within a few hours, so it's always best to have all your gear ready to go. Move forward. Here's a picture of us loading the jet up ourselves. You can see the people on the right, they have all that gear on their back. Everything we take with us, we're ready to camp. So we'll work for 14 days straight typically. When you have travel, you have around 18 to 21 days that you'll be gone for. So we'll have all of our gear with us, sleeping bag, our line gear to keep us safe.
So Courtney,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when you think about fighting fires, they picture, a fire engine or a truck. Obviously, you can't put one of those on the airplane and take it with you. So are you guys without those resources, or are those provided by other departments out west when you guys go?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we send out equipment like the bulldozer and the engine you see there, that's equipment from the Ohio Division of Forestry that we maintain and own that we'll send out with our resources. But these 20-person crews, obviously we're not carrying chainsaws on airplanes, so we'll go out with our own equipment that we need for ourselves to live. And then when we get to the incident, that incident will supply us with the hand tools, which I'll show some pictures of later. And like the chainsaws and the vehicles to get around.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yep. So yep, working on an incident. Like I said, it's usually 14 days of work. We have really long days. So, you know, at the end of the day, you're so tired, you just have enough time to eat, maybe shower, and sleep until you get up in the morning. So here is some of our tools. I know Aaron was mentioning that shelter. You can see that kind of blue square thing. That's our fire shelter we use for a last resort to keep firefighters safe. The item next to it, that red cylinder with a handle, that's called a drip torch. That's what we'll use to put fire on the ground if we need to do that. Then you see all the other hand tools there, like the shovel, which everybody should recognize that Smokey Bear carries a shovel with them. Then we've got other hand tools like a combi, Pulaski, and chainsaw. So biggest thing there is making sure that we're using our tools correctly and in a safe manner. And the type of work we do, like I said, I've been on 10 out-of-state fire assignments, and they've all been very different. All had lots of different experiences and work. But here's examples of the work that we usually do. You can move forward. I'll get into them later. So mop up is a lot of work we do, and as you can see in this picture, it's pretty black around where we're working. Most everything has been burnt. So what happened here is the fire has already moved through the area, and what we're doing is we're going around finding out, looking for these hotspot locations, and we're putting them out, or we're making sure that they're a safe distance in the interior of the fire. So if you get a big wind event that comes through or other type of weather event, that it won't reignite the fire and jump over our lines. So it's really, really important work because if we don't make sure that the fire is safely mopped up, you can have what we call rekindles, where the fire reignites and it can spread further. So here's another picture of mop up. Right here, we're fortunate to have water with us to mop up those areas. Another thing that we do for mop up is gridding. So this is in Colorado a couple years ago. You can see all us firefighters were lined up in a row, and what we're doing here is we're all walking together and we're looking for hot spots. So when we do this type of gridding, we're making sure that we're covering the ground correctly and we're not missing any hot spots. Here's some more pictures of mop up. So sometimes when you have trees that there might be fire in the top of them, we'll cut them down if it's safe to do so. And then the picture on the right, where what he's doing there is he's cutting off the burning part of the log, and then we'll put it into an area where it can just burn itself out, because if he didn't cut that off, that whole big tree can just keep on burning, and you see the grass and the green areas around him that can reignite. Some more mop up. It's a very dirty job, but it's a very important one. And you know, sometimes we're in areas like you see on the left, where it's just really thick brush you got to crawl around in and look for those hot spots. Here's a picture of me in California several years ago now. Yeah, you get to see some beautiful country. I know that was after working a 34-hour shift right there. Hose lays is another type of work that we do. So as Aaron was mentioning earlier, a lot of these fires, they happen in super remote areas. It's not like here in Ohio where you've got a fire hydrant in certain areas. So what we'll do if the terrain and resources allow for it is we'll get these hose and we'll attach them and we'll put them out in different areas to either prep for a fire coming, or we'll use those hose to mop up. So how do we get the water? Well, you can see in the picture on the right, they'll have big trucks that carry lots of water, and they'll come and we set up these essentially like swimming pools that will leave the water in, and then we'll connect the hose to them, and we'll either have to have a pump to pump the water from that tank into the hose, or a lot of times they'll be gravity fed. So the water tank will be up on top of the hill and the hose will be down below. But in the picture on the left, you can see, if you go back there, it's a lot of work carrying this hose. I know in that picture, I think I had around 80 pounds of hose on my back that we were carrying and laying out across the fire line in preparation of the fire coming close to that area. So what do we do when we're done with that? Somebody's got to retrieve all that hose. So here's a nice picture of some firefighters after we've gathered up all the hose. We've got it all piled up. You see a couple firefighters taking a break on it. And here is a video for you. So we were in a remote area here in Idaho that we couldn't pack all of that hose out. We couldn't pack all that hose out, so a helicopter came and we bundled it up, and the helicopter came and picked up all the hose and flew away with it to the headquarters. Oh, the videos were oriented the correct way when I had it, but.
So it's just pulling up that hose, Courtney?
Yep. You see that long cord attached to it?
Mm-hmm.
And you think it's just essentially got netting around it. So we laid the netting out, put all that hose on it, bundled it up. You see he's just flying off with it.
Okay.
So that was super handy. We didn't have to pack all of that, pack all of it out ourselves. Another type of work that we do out west is called burning out. So what that is we'll burn an area kind of like a prescribed fire in front of the fire approaching. So the reason we do that is if the fire builds and builds in intensity, when it hits that burned area, it'll slow down and it won't be really hot and jump our fire lines. So a lot of burnouts that we do are in the nighttime when the weather conditions are more favorable. So we'll get those areas burnt to stop the fire. So you're essentially fighting fire with fire. So yep, not sure why my videos are sideways, but yeah, here's a video of a burnout we did at night. So you can see we're on a road, so right there, that road acts as a barrier, as a fire line or control line.
If you don't have a road, are there other types of barriers that you use?
Yeah, that's a great question. So sometimes there's natural barriers like creeks, and then if there's not, that's when we'll create the barriers ourselves with our hand tools. We'll dig a line, or you'll have a bulldozer that'll push a line in. So other jobs we do is we'll act as a lookout. Here's a picture of me in Idaho. So the reason for a lookout is safety. Safety is number one, making sure everybody's staying safe. So a lot of times when you're working in the woods, you're in such a thick forest, you can't see what's going on around you. So if there's a fire approaching, you don't know. So what we'll do here is we'll set someone away from the crew in a nice, usually a high spot where they can see where the crew is working and where the fire is. And that lookout will have communications with the crew. So if there's anything that comes, if a fire builds intensity, or sometimes a lookout will notice if there's a storm coming. So if we see anything that could pose threats to the firefighters approaching, we'll call them on the radio and let them know. And that's, you know, at the state fair, what does Smokey have behind him? He's got that lookout tower. So another jobs that we do, we call it brushing out. You can see in the picture on the right on the road, you see we removed a lot of vegetation. So we essentially mowed that area down. And that's kind of similar with burning out, is we're trying to reduce that vegetation. So if the fire burns up to that road, the flames will be, you know, maybe a few feet as opposed to really, really big flames, and it'll be less likely to jump the road or fire line. So you can see the firefighters are acting all together in a line, passing brush back and forth. Other work we do is initial attack. Here's a fire was on in New Mexico. The cause of this fire was a truck. The truck was overheating and it caught fire, and it started this wildfire right next to the highway. So you can see this is after we put the fire out, and we're walking around with hose looking for hot spots, making sure that those are all cooled down. There's a video of that spot in New Mexico. More initial attack. All the videos were oriented the correct way on my screen, but here is a helicopter that's got a long rope beneath it and a bucket full of water. So what they're doing there is they're flying around and they're putting water on hot spots. So what we'll do a lot of times is we'll talk to the helicopter pilot via radio and let them know where they need to drop their water to get the most effective water drop. Here's initial attack in New Mexico a few years ago. You can see the smoke column there. So that's what our view was when we were walking into the fire. So a lot of smoke can tell a lot of things. It can tell you what's burning and the fire intensity, so how big the fire is. So those are good things to look at before we approach the fire. Here is a retardant drop. I'm sure you guys have seen some of this on the news. So this is a really big plane, and he's got retardant that he's dropping. So what that is, it's not water, it's a different chemical substance that's supposed to, it coats the fuels to make them less likely to burn. So here is what you asked me about earlier, Alyssa. So what do we do if there are no natural barriers or roads? So that's where we use our hand tools and we dig them. So this is when cooperation is super, super important. You can see everybody's working together. We're all digging in line. And you can see how, especially in the picture on the right, how great that line looks by the time everybody's gone through and cleared it out. So do firefighters get tired? What do you guys think? Yeah, we definitely get tired. Working, 14, 16-hour days, we got to take breaks. So sometimes, you got to take a nap on the side of a road for a few minutes to get your energy back. So here's a neat picture of us taking a break. There are a lot of hazards that we work around being wildland firefighters. Biggest thing is the fire itself, making sure that we're safe distance from it, and we have all of our correct safety equipment on. So yeah, here's just a few pictures of fires that have been really close to out west.
Speaking of being close to fires, we have a question from Parker and Porter, age 11, and they asked, what do you do when the fire relights right next to you?
Yeah, so depending on how big it is, if it's if it's not too big and we can safely work next to it, we'll use our tools to either dig out around it, or if we have water there, we might be able to put water on it. But if the fire gets really, really big, so especially in this picture on the right, that is too big for us. So what we had to do, we had to call in and have a helicopter come with that bucket and drop water on it. So if the fire's really large in intensity, that's when we have to use larger pieces of equipment to put it out. Or as Aaron mentioned, sometimes if it's so big, what we have to do is just evacuate the area and make sure that all the public and everybody's safe. That was a great question.
And we had one more question that came in that I figure I'll ask now as well. Somebody asked, sometimes they see trees, logs, and debris stacked up in mounds or teepees in forests. Do you know what the intent of these are?
So sometimes I've definitely seen that more in western areas. So in those types of areas, what crews will sometimes do is we call fuel mitigation. So they'll gather up some of those branches and things around, and they'll put them in a pile and burn them, usually in the winter time when there's snow on the ground. So what they're doing there is they're essentially cleaning up the forest floor, so if a wildfire does come through, it won't be as large in intensity.
That was an interesting observation.
Yeah.
The person who asked. So thanks for your questions, everyone.
So yeah, we got to make sure we stay safe. And other hazards that we deal with, working around equipment. Certain areas that we have that are conducive to use equipment, we'll use them. It's super handy. You can see on the left, there's we call a masticator that essentially goes through and it'll grind up all the vegetation. And on the right, there's a video of Montana. So we're working on this road, and there's this big truck goes by with, all those logs. So what they did there is they cut those trees down to reduce the fire intensity next to the fire line. Move forward. Other hazards, doesn't look very good, but on the left is a picture of someone's got poison oak. Poison oak is something that I've only ever seen it in California, but it's much, much worse than poison ivy. It can give you a terrible rash. So if you see poison oak, we always make sure to stay away. Other hazards we deal with, we work in steep grounds. Here you can see we're using actually fire hose, essentially as rope to get up and down the mountain there. Move forward. Other hazards, the picture on the left is actually from porta-johns that blew over in our camp. We had a storm that came through and blew those over. And on the right, that was a tanker truck. They was driving up a steep road and fell over, but nobody was injured there. Other hazards, sometimes you get tired, so fatigue, firefighters need to take breaks. So after working such long shifts and so many days, fatigue can start to set in. In the picture on the right, the hazard there is all those dead standing trees. So we got to make sure that when we're walking or working in areas like that, we aren't there very long, and we make sure that we're not going through those areas when it's windy and those dead trees can fall on us. Wildlife. So we do see bear and other wildlife out west. Here's a picture in California. A mama bear got fairly close, but she kept her distance. We were all fine. Other hazards, wildlife. You can see here, this Bigfoot. Now, what that is that was a fire in Pennsylvania. We came across that and like, what is that? Is that Bigfoot? But somebody had a Bigfoot sculpture in their woods that kind of startled us. So camp life. So what do we do when we're not fighting fire? We got to have somewhere to eat and sleep. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll find areas of either, federal lands or some private lands that they'll lease, and especially usually big fields that we'll set our tents up in. And so we'll sleep in our tents at nighttime, and you can move forward. We usually have porta-johns there for us and food. So here's a big camp where you can see lots of fire engines. So this is where we stay, and where the camps are located, they're far enough from the fire. So if the fire grows in intensity, we're in a safe place. So here's a picture on the left. Actually, a storm came through and it damaged a large tent that we call it a food tent. On the right, you can see all the firefighters in line getting food, dinner time. Sometimes we don't sleep in tents. I've only had one fire assignment. They actually had us sleep in these large tractor trailers. They had little bunks that you would sleep in. So it was a little space. We'd cram all of our equipment in, not our equipment, but our sleeping bags and our gear, and sleep in those little spaces in that tractor trailer. Some beautiful areas. That's that was Montana on the right. Yep. So you get to see some pretty sunrises and sunsets. So why do we do this? It's a great experience for us to bring back to Ohio. We don't have as many, we don't have the large fires that they do out west. So it's a great experience that we bring back with fire suppression tactics. And then also we learn a lot of leadership skills and working with diverse people that we bring back to Ohio. Biggest thing for me is it's just wonderful to help all those people in need. Usually every year the firefighters, the resources become exhausted and they need more people to help them. So it's great that us from Ohio are able to travel and assist them and protect the lives and structures. And another good reason is see our beautiful country. I've been in lots of areas in the U.S. that I would never, ever go to if it weren't for fighting fire. So here's some pictures. Oregon and Montana, just beautiful places in our country. I was very fortunate to have visited. Got New Mexico there. Went to Yosemite last year. There wasn't a fire there, but we were really close to Yosemite and we got to take a little stop there. Crater Lake a few years ago, you can see a picture of the whole crew. So all those 20 firefighters. That was the end of our trip, so a lot of us are pretty tired and dirty. Here's more neat pictures of our fire crews. On the left, you can see there's an incense cedar in Oregon. So yeah, we get to see some just huge trees. Camaraderie, it's been wonderful getting to know my fellow coworkers and other people on the interagency fire crew, spending a lot of time with them. It's great. We build relationships that we bring back home to Ohio. So yeah, thank you everybody. I apologize for the technical delay. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Courtney. We answered most of the questions that came in along the way, and we're a little bit over time. So thank you for those of you who joined us, and they were great questions today. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, Erin, as well, for your help. And I just wanted to let you all know what we have coming up next, because this wrapped up our series with forestry. So next month, what we're going to be doing is a series with our Division of Parks and Watercraft, and we're going to be telling some spooky stories. We have lots of fun on the way. It'll be Wednesdays at 10. Some of our state parks are haunted, so we'll hear about those haunted legends. We're also going to do an episode on bats and spiders. So we're really going with the theme leading up to Halloween of, of spooky stories. So I hope that you will join us then. Tomorrow we do have our last webinar scheduled for the month, and it's also with our Division of Parks and Watercraft about vernal pools, also at 10 a.m. I hope you can join us. Vernal pools, you find them more in the spring, but if you want to put one on your property, now is the time, and there are tons of cool species that you can explore in a vernal pool. So thanks again, everybody who was watching, and to our presenters, and we'll see you next time. Bye.